We're 4 minutes behind.
Yep, sorry, we could have spent a whole meeting on that.
I
Yes, we could
know.
have.
Thanks,
Yes.
Susan, for letting me vent a little.
All right, Nancy.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to our round table. And as I said, I'm very excited about it because it's a very pertinent topic. And we want this to have a real positive effect on the way we think. And it's not just the others, but how we think about the value of ourselves as women. So we have all our panelists here. We have 8 panelists. And the first thing I'm going to do is introduce Jocelyn DeSotel. She is our BPW Niagara Falls president, and she will read the land acknowledgement from BPW Ontario Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. Okay, Jocelyn.
Thank you. Although this is a virtual meeting, we normally hold our BPW meetings in person in many areas of Ontario. We acknowledge that we're meeting on lands inhabited by Indigenous peoples for thousands of years. We recognize and deeply appreciate their continuing contributions and historic importance. We thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land. We are grateful and acknowledge the peoples we share these lands with, the First Nations, the Métis, the Inuit, in accordance with our mission to develop the business, professional, and leadership potential of women on all levels through advocacy, education, mentoring, networking, skill building, and economic empowerment programs and projects around the world. We commit to advocating for the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, the final report's 231 calls to justice with the Ontario and federal governments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody again. And for those who are not familiar with business and professional women, we're part of an international organization which advocates for women's rights, equality in social and financial issues, and more. And we have, BPW has clubs all over the world. You see some people here that are representing different countries, which is really exciting. And so you'll meet them this evening. And BPW Niagara Falls happens to be the oldest BPW club because we were chartered in 1917. So we're now 104 years old. We're small, but we're mighty, and we're old, but we're here and we're energetic. Some of us feel really old, older more than normal. Okay, I would like to introduce our club secretary, Anne Knicley, who has just jumped at the opportunity to take the minutes. Anne, would you like to say something? Say hello.
I would like to say that I'm really happy to be here, and I'm happy to see all you people, some of whom I know you relatively well, some I know very well, and the odd person that I'm delighted to meet. Because a couple of you are on my Facebook page and I don't think I know you very well, but that's great. And it's going to be a good evening, and we have the most wonderful group of women as our panelists. So I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to take up any more time. We can hear them.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
I guess I should tell you who I am. My name is Nancy Brewers. I've been a member of BPW for over 23 years. I've been a president so many times I don't remember. I'm currently the treasurer, membership chair, special events chair, and fundraising chair. I'm also district director for the Golden Horseshoe. So I'm a freelance illustrator and a certified life path coach. I rescue feral cats and kittens. My business is Color Me Happy, de-stressing with healing energy mandalas. And I hope you all know what a mandala is. I illustrate children's books, and I have 10 different healing energy mandala coloring books for adults to deal with issues such as self-esteem, reconnecting with your feminine self, even budding out, like for cigarette smoking. And I'm currently writing a book about my life as a crazy cat lady. So that's me. Now I'm going to introduce RMC, who is Linda Babb. Where's Linda? And there you are. You've moved. Linda, would you like to, oh, wait a minute. I have a write-up about you. Linda is a teacher, administrator of the British Columbia Government Caucus, ministerial legislative personal assistant with members of the Legislative Assembly in Government of British Columbia. She also worked in the Ministries of Municipal Affairs, Education, and Agriculture. She's an accredited public relations professional. And now she's bringing all those experiences into the field of community activism and encouraging people to learn that their voices and power are theirs to own. And Linda runs the People's Platform. You can find it on Facebook. Linda, would you like to say, wave your hand so everyone knows who you are?
This is so exciting for me, because it literally ties everything together that I've been trying to do, or attempting to do, shouldn't say trying, attempting to do since I came to Niagara Falls. And that coincided with my personal freedom. And that freedom might seem odd to some people, but for all the years I was in Victoria, I was constrained because I was perceived to be needed to toe the line. So I had to do what I was told and not rock the boat. When I came here, I thought, hey, I can be an activist. I can do whatever I like. Recently, I was referred to as an anarchist. I don't think I'm an anarchist, but what I want to do is just, the purpose of this was Nancy and I got together as a result of another meeting, when the topic of that was women in politics. And I know, I just saw that, sorry, Susan will identify with this, because my point was, it's not that we need more women in politics, because gender determines nothing. It's the character and the values and the integrity of the people who run. And that's what we should be focusing on. So just to say we need more women in politics, I saw Susan made the same comment. I saw some women in my life in politics who were even worse than the men. And part of that was because there are some women who go into politics and they try to be better men than the men. And what they don't take into account is the inherent power of women, which is why we decided, Nancy and I talked about it, and we decided that we would do this round table. And the intent that we came up with was for each participant to consider the questions in the context of the headings, in the home, in the workplace, in the community, and in leadership. So I'm intentionally taking this time to remind us. We avoided the word empowered because it's a bit of a cliche nowadays, and it doesn't mean a heck of a lot. It's important for women to accept that they're not quote unquote powerless or less important than men in the community, because the men may take the more high profile positions, but it's time for all women to realize just how much they impact in all those areas. So this point was not to regurgitate or reignite feminist rhetoric, just to remind women it's not a battle for superiority. It's about recognizing for women to honestly and simply honor their worth at their core and value themselves, because for generations, women have been disparaged and diminished by the men, only because they needed to assert their authority. We don't need to get out there and bang the drums and march. We just need to know in ourselves the power that we have. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Now I'm going to introduce our panelists, and I will read off a brief bio from them. And the first one is Karin Gorgerat. Wave, Karin, so we know where you are. There's Karin. Karin is currently the president of the Canadian Federation of Business and Professional Women of BPW Canada. That's an organization, again, that has worked for over 90 years to improve conditions for women in Canada. And Karin's been a member for over 30 years. She started as a baby. She retired 4 years ago after a 43-year career at BMO Bank of Montreal, and that included positions as branch manager, commercial account manager, and regional sales manager. So she has a lot of experience and skills acquired in that time. Thank you for agreeing to be a panelist, Karin. Our next panelist is Lezlie Harper. There's Lezlie. There she is. Okay. Lezlie is the director and owner of the Niagara Bound Tours, Black History Tour Company that's been operating here in Niagara for 17 years. Lezlie is also a past member with a long history with Business and Professional Women's Club, and her mother was also president of the Fort Erie Club. So she has a long-standing connection to BPW. I'm still trying to get her to join us. Mary Lou Davidson. Mary Lou had an abrupt career change, in her words, from being a graphic artist and photographer, which I didn't know you were a graphic artist, Mary Lou. That's very interesting. To applying to everything in the government for equal pay and benefits, and she became a police officer for the Niagara Regional Police Service. And now she's retired, so she fulfills her love of animals by volunteering with animal rescue groups and having a pet sitting service, as well as enjoying travel and photography. And some of my furries have come from Mary Lou, and I've continued on. And at one point, I will admit that outside we had 58 furry. I ended up with a little inheritance, and I had all the animals, all the cats neutered, vaccinated, and microchipped, and adopted a bunch out. And those that were still too shy to come into someone's house are living out their natural lives here, healthy and happy. So that's Mary Lou, the gorgeous blonde there. Jane Hanlon, where's Jane? I know she's here. There she is. There's Jane. Okay, Jane, she says, I have been a strong advocate for social and environmental justice as far back as I can recall, though more recently with Climate Action Niagara and Greening Niagara. I have spent many years with the Niagara District Council of Women to improve conditions for women, families, and community through education and by providing alternative policies to all levels of government. Thank you, Jane, for being part of our panel.
My pleasure.
Lynn Ogryzlo. Where's Lynn? Lynn, is she here? Oh, there she is. Hi, Lynn. Lynn, food, wine, and community is a delicious way to work and live. And we know that Lynn is that. Her career spans newspaper food columnist to television culinary reporter, cookbook author, and now she's a holistic nutritionist. Lynn uses local and healthy food to lead Niagara's culinary movement towards prosperity and improved health. Lynn Ogryzlo, food writer, cookbook author, holistic nutritionist, and food therapy host, because what you put in your body matters, right? And I've known Lynn for many years, since we were infants, I think. Okay, JoAnne Krick. JoAnne is the Director of Grants and Community Initiatives at the Niagara Community Foundation. She graduated from Brock University in 1999 with a BA in sociology and immediately began volunteering at the Niagara Falls Women's Shelter Nova House and was employed by Women's Place of South Niagara for nearly 10 years. In addition to her 20+ years in the nonprofit sector, JoAnne has committed herself to volunteerism. She's been an active member of the Zonta Club of Niagara Falls for 18 years, and they strive also to advance the status of women locally and around the world. We all seem to have that common thread. She's a former Rotarian and member of Business and Professional Club of Niagara. She was once one of our presidents, and I keep wanting to try and get her back, but she looks the other way when I beg. She doesn't even get, my tears don't even tempt her into coming back. So she has
I am tempted, Nancy. Thank you.
Oh, please come back. Because you said until your girls grew up. Well, your girls are so grown up now. They're so beautiful.
Oh, they sure
JoAnne
are. They're getting
recently,
there.
JoAnne recently completed her nonprofit and voluntary management certificate through distant learning at Ryerson University. She's married with 2 absolutely gorgeous daughters in grades 9 and 12, which is hard for me to believe because I remember her walking around with big bumps in her belly. So thank you, JoAnne, for agreeing to be part of this. Rosemary Evangelista. Now there's another old friend, and I mean old as in a long time. Rosemary, 70 years of, are you that old? You don't look it. No, 70 years, she must have started in another life. 70 years of life experiences have given her knowledge and insight to reach and help others. Currently, she's a real estate agent assistant. She's president of the Women Empowered Women's Institute, the St. Catharines Branch. That's a very old organization, Women's Institute. Hamilton Women's Institute area chair. Melaleuca, is that how you say that? Melaleuca Director 3, a certified therapeutic art life coach, partner in CYFO, which is Change Your Future Outcome, and beginning a journey to create online help, write a book and speak. And she's the proud nana of 6 grandchildren and loving life. So she's Women Empowered Women's Institute member, president, and Melaleuca director and real estate assistant to Janice Carter, certified therapeutic art life coach. I'd like to talk to you about that later. And CYFO and chief creative officer. Very, very accomplished. So Susan Venditti and I got into a conversation a few weeks ago online about our life experience, having been, we're not teenagers anymore. We're queenagers. Okay, so Susan is a teacher, a homemaker and a mom, a realtor, and ED. What's ED mean? Executive director. The community, she started as a city rep on the library board, 4 terms as elected school board trustee, the chair of Interchurch since 1998, and a Niagara District Council of Women member. She's been recognized as with the Paul Harris Rotary Fellow, Woman of the Year 2019, Roy Adams Humanitarian of Year 2021, Honorary Doctorate Brock University of 2015, the Zonta Award of 2000. Her concern is that women start taking things for granted and stop working on gender equality issues, such as wages, daycare, levels of representation, and more. She's also worried about backlash as gender power structure balances, and she's seen too many females adopt male leadership styles and undervalue what they bring to the leadership. And I thank all of you for agreeing to be panelists. The collective history and experience is just so exciting. Now, all right. Introduction of observers. I would like each of you to take your turn and state your name, where you live, and the organization you represent. So I'm seeing who's Carolyn Savage.
Good afternoon, all. I'm Carolyn Savage. I'm a past president of BPW New Zealand. I'm from Christchurch. I'm also the Constitutional Advisory Chair for BPW International and the Asia Pacific Sub-Regional Coordinator for Oceania. So that's
Amazing.
brief who I am. And professionally, I'm a senior design manager, a registered architect, and I'm a Green Star accredited professional.
And you are actually in New Zealand right now.
Right now in Christchurch.
Isn't this great? All over the world. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Pratibha?
I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Pratibha.
What is it? Pratibha? Welcome, Pratibha. Would you like to tell us where you are and who you represent?
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's me, Pratibha Pun from Nepal. Personally, I am the PhD scholar and the writer, freelancer, writer and trainer. I worked 10 years in BPW Nepal as a founder president of Sunakuti BPW chapter. And then I am working in Mughal Study Center, which is the academic organization, and as well at the secretary post in Ejuru, Nepal. And Nepali language is my first language and working language. So there in English, maybe problem. So I have nothing to say. Thank you. I have feeling very lucky having with you all authentic leaders from a different sector. Today, I'm only the good listener. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratibha.
Thank you for coming, and please stick out as long as you can. And if you have a problem, one of us will help you.
Mhm.
Okay?
Yeah.
This is wonderful. Sherry. Yeah, you. You're the only Sherry here. Where are you from and who do you represent?
Sorry, just realized I was still on mute. Sorry about that. My name is Sherry. The lovely Linda Babb invited me. I have been an active member on her platform, the People's Platform, which, by the way, you guys really need to check out if you're in the Niagara region and interested in what's going on here, because it's a really good place to have open conversations and dialogue. So I've been in the Niagara region for almost a decade, and over the past few years, I've become really involved in the community here. Genuinely invested in my community. I run a social platform called Mainly Niagara, which is designed to put a spotlight on the small businesses, the artists, musicians, community events happening in our place, and we try to spend. We try to really present a positive message and showcase the people who are out there making a difference. And I'm also, someone who follows local politics very closely, and so that's why this was of interest to me, was because of that. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this incredible group of women. I appreciate it.
Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
Our next person would be Beth. Beth, you can introduce yourself and
had to find the unmute button.
what you represent.
Beth Hill
Where are you
Cullen.
from?
I'm in Fort Colborne, Ontario. So I'm a local as well. Sherry, it's nice to finally see your face. Sherry and I connected over small scale farms. But I guess I just represent me and my business. I'm a Vox Life associate, so I represent just little old me.
And we're happy for that. And I'll mention that Beth is also a member of BPW Niagara Falls.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
And you also help out a lot with fundraising.
Yes.
Yes, right. I do that too.
And
it's been a bit of a blur today. I'm in 2 different places at once.
And
so.
you were a teacher for a long time too.
I was. I was a core French teacher for 26 years. I didn't think everybody wanted to hear my whole backstory. So I'm excited to get us moving.
It's always good to know, Beth, and we need people with your background too.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Beth. And Heather. Heather Ellis, I see you lurking behind your name there. Are you there?
Yes, Heather has typed in the chat that she actually has a problem with her voice today and she won't be able to actually talk with us.
Oh,
So
yes.
she has said
Heather
hello.
is
She said, I have laryngitis, so I am typing my introduction. Heather Ellis, BPW Ontario president, and I am a secondary school teacher. Thank you, Heather.
That's excellent. Thank you, Heather. I'm glad you came, even if you can't speak up. Our next observer is Charmaine Grace. Charmaine, are you ready?
I'm here. Hi, everybody. My name is Charmaine Grace. I am a
Oh, where'd you go?
Okay, we'll try it again. Hi. I don't know that I want to start my video, but I will. Hi, Charmaine Grace, past president of BPW Niagara Falls, and I am a law of attraction life coach with Your Next Step to Possibility, helping empty nesters recapture their joy so that they can step into whatever is possible for them. So again, my name is Charmaine Grace.
Thank you, Charmaine. We rope her into a lot of things too. Samantha, you're next.
Let's
There you are.
unmute. You're muted, Samantha. That's all. There's a button to unmute yourself. And if you want to talk a little bit, or maybe if you want to type in the chat, that might help. I know you're busy with children. We can't hear you. You're muted. You can also press your space bar briefly and hold it down, and that unmutes you while you're speaking. Or like I said, you can type in the chat. I'm glad you're here, Samantha.
Yes, yes. Maybe when it gets fixed, then we can talk to you again. Now, this next lady, I don't know how to pronounce her name. I apologize for that. O-V-A-G.
Oh, it is Priscilla. Priscilla Ovag from France.
Oh, Priscilla.
Yes.
Oh, Priscilla. Oh, I'm sorry. I just saw the last name and I couldn't connect. Priscilla, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. I am connected from France to Lyon. My name is Priscilla. I am a member of BPW Lyon. And thank you for this invitation.
It was a great pleasure that.
Well, we're glad that you came.
Yes, and several of us attended your Dîner de Lumière last November at your invitation, and it was wonderful.
Absolutely.
Bonsoir, Madame.
So thank you. I think we've talked to Jane. I guess that's everybody. Have I missed anyone? No? Okay, then we can move on. Now, what we're going to do is get Linda. Where's Linda? I keep losing her. Linda, now you can start. You can explain the purpose of the roundtable and start posing your questions.
Well, I'm hoping to save time that everybody has printed off the second overview so that the people who are panelists are going to be able to read their own questions and answer them in order. Is that acceptable to everyone?
What?
Okay, what I thought we would do is I thought I would do it, being an old-fashioned teacher, we'll go alphabetically. So I'll start with Mary Lou, and then it'll be Rosemary, Karen, Lezlie, Jane, JoAnne, Lynn, and Susan, in that order. So Mary Lou, you're looking very gorgeous in the red. Are you ready to get started? And that wasn't meant to be an awful comment. Can I say that you look lovely?
Thank you. Although I will challenge Nancy on who's the craziest cat lady.
Well, I had two in my room and I've got two ferals, so but you're way ahead of me.
She also left off, I was 3 terms as BPW president in Niagara Falls.
That's
Wow.
right, before I started.
Yes.
Totally fat, and I shouldn't have, I'm sorry. Yes, I've been trying to get her back ever since.
So Mary Lou, are you ready to go?
Sure.
Good.
Well, what do you want me to do?
Well, I thought you had printed off the questions and you're going to be able to answer them. Do you want me to ask you?
Sure, ask me a question.
Excuse
All
me,
right.
it's Lezlie Harper. I didn't, because I've been homesick this week, I didn't get a chance to run it off. So if you could say the questions, then I can respond because I don't have the questions in front of me.
Happy to do that, Lezlie. Okay. Do you agree or disagree with the following and why? Women embody the essence of the community.
Women embody the
Essence.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I do agree with that.
Would you like to give your impression of why?
Why? Oh, well, okay. Being on the spot, I didn't actually see any of these questions from what I received. And I hate going first. I agree with it because women, we're almost this, and okay, this is overgeneralizing, but I think we hold the more spiritual, the more peaceful, the more connectedness. And again, some men would say disagree with me, but my experience, and I've always worked non-traditional work, is I think that's true. There's a strong gentleness with women.
Perfect. And do you agree or disagree that women identify what is needed for a healthy, balanced community?
Okay, we're doing all the questions at me first?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay. Okay, do I?
Hot seat.
Yeah, put me on the spot. Okay, I'm sorry. Could you say that again? To identify?
Women identify, and I'm saying that because it's hard to articulate, but really, I feel that women know in the sense of identify. They don't always articulate it, but they know what's needed for a healthy, balanced community.
No, I disagree with that. A lot of women are very oblivious to it, take things for granted, and don't want the responsibility.
I wish I was taking notes, Mary Lou, because you're making great points. Women bring a different perspective and mindset to any decision-making process.
Oh, that's absolutely correct. And again, being in a non-traditional workspace, yeah, it was very important to bring in again the strength by not having to be muscular strong, be able to speak, and gentleness can work. Strict gentleness, if you get my drift.
Absolutely. Being a teacher, I know exactly what you mean. So in light of the answers to the first 3 questions, you obviously perceive women in a very strong light.
Yes.
Good. So that's you off the hook, Mary Lou.
Thank you.
We'll go on to Rosemary now, because we're going to sum up. I'll sum up everybody later when we've gone through all the questions.
There we go.
So the next person is Rosemary. Hi, Rosemary.
Hi, I had a little issue there trying to unmute. So compared to Mary Lou, I'm going to be sounding a little long-winded here because I jotted down a bunch of points.
That's great.
So here we go. So women embody the essence of the community. Well, to me, this means to embrace the spirit of the community. So women, I feel, do have a feel for the community through their home and workplace. Now, representing the Women's Institute, a nonprofit organization that's almost 125 years old, we work locally, provincially, nationally, and internationally. We have different affiliates around the world, so we work with women in rural and urban places. Through our programs, we've offered education programming, community support, advocating for social, environmental, and economic changes. So we see what women can do through our organization and with our organization. The reason I bring up the Women's Institute, because almost 125 years ago, in February 19th, it'll be 125 years, our organization started with the help of one man in Stony Creek. And women have fought for their rights and gender equality for decades. So my point here is that as women, we have a different strength and understanding from the home to leadership, but no one gender can make the proper changes needed without the other. In this divisive society, we need to come together, work together, and communicate with one another. Communicating without fear, animosity, or greed. Working together with all people within our community will strengthen that embodiment of the essence of the community and country, and therefore to each home and workplace. Women can be the force to begin the conversation, to communication, and to work with everyone. My work at our local branch of the Women Empowered Women's Institute has brought people together through workshops, Zoom meetings like this, and so much more. We have worked with men and women to create the empowerment needed in our society. And I know, Linda, you mentioned you didn't like the word, or we didn't want to use the word empowerment, but, and you feel that's overused, but that is exactly what we need to do. Give one the power to make a change in their life, in their leadership, in their home and workplace, in their community, the power to give the support and education in leadership, whether we are local, political, spiritual, it all comes down to realizing the essence of the power to serve others. Give a hungry person food, you feed them for the day. Give them the power to survive longer and feed a village by giving them the seeds. That's my first question.
Great, thank you. I just want to pick up, I want to follow on from your the use of the word empowerment, because I don't dislike the word. I just feel that in many ways it's been misinterpreted. Because from all you've said, what I would love to see is more women own their power, the power that's inherent in them. And part of what triggered all this was recognizing that what's increasing right now, whether people are aware of it or not, is it's an increase in the feminine energy. And everything you've said is absolutely spot on. It's exactly what people need to hear. But too many women have felt that they had no power. And that's what we need to overcome in a way. But we're not going to do it with protests. It's just reminding women what their value is. And reminding women the qualities that they bring that they need to really honor, and say, you know what? Yeah, I can do that. And if we can spread that message subtly, without bashing anybody over the head, then we'll see more women feel strong enough to speak up for themselves.
Right, and that's right, and that's where I talked about communicating without fear, animosity, or greed.
Yeah.
So to your second question, women identify what is needed for a healthy, balanced community. Well, I believe most women are more sensitive to the needs in the home, workplace, and community. Women are the matriarchs of the family and have the ability to make changes, nurture, care for family members, and support the family by working outside the home. With this vast experience and knowledge acquired in the home and at work, women can readily identify what is needed in all areas, including a healthy, balanced community. I think we're more sensitive to that, but not all women are the same. We each tend to gravitate to the one thing we love or the one strength or talent where we can participate in whatever area we are gifted. As a WI member, our gifts and talents for a healthy, balanced community is exemplified through the various efforts we as a group make in our community, such as Lyme disease awareness, human trafficking awareness, and more. So by bringing women together, we become stronger.
Perfect. I think you pretty well answered the thing about bringing a different perspective and mindset in what you've already said, because you covered it all that.
Yeah, I think some of this will be repetitive, I think, answering each of these questions. So the third one, women bring a different perspective and mindset to any decision-making process. For years, women have felt unworthy and lacking the strength to stand up for what's right. Women know what needs to change and how to change it. The lack of value, lack of self-worth, low self-esteem has gone on too long. And it's been a long, hard battle, but the few who did stand up along the way certainly did bring that different perspective and mindset to many things. Today's women have great insight and awareness of the world and have and will continue to contribute valuable ideas to any decision-making process. Along with the insight and awareness, however, we need to be mindful of all genders and peoples. We need balance. No gender equality, women's lib, male-dominated workplace, etc., have created an imbalance, and we need to identify these needs and inclusion of all.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Now you're off the hook. And we go on to Karin.
Okay, well, I did what Rosemary did. I jotted down some notes based on the questions and took it into the different areas of home, workplace, community, and leadership. So women embodying the essence of the community in the home. I believe certainly that women embody the essence in the home. Obviously not in every case, but in most cases, the women are the caregivers, and that's been evidenced during COVID more than ever, with mostly women trying to balance the working from home, helping their children with their education, their online learning, maybe helping their elderly family members, and really keeping the home fires burning. So it mainly has been women in that case. In the workplace and in leadership, it's the leadership that gave the embodiment of the atmosphere in the workplace. And that really depended on the management style. So there's no doubt that, there's a different style between men and women, both good and bad, on both sides of the coin. But that really led the atmosphere in the workplace. And in the community, women certainly have a huge impact in the communities that they service, but it depends on what work or organizations I think that they're involved in on how it impacts the community as a whole. And, it was said about women going to areas that they're more comfortable with, and that may be that they might not go across the board, but they certainly do have an impact. So the second question, I guess, with identifying what's needed, in the home as the primary caregiver in most cases, it's the woman that looks for the balance, trying to mediate, to make sure everybody's happy. In the workplace, I think that women make more concessions than men in the workplace. They may not, they may just let things go so that they don't cause any problems, so everybody can get along and have a smooth workplace. Sometimes to their own risk. In the community, whilst women may see a number of areas that need to be worked on in their community, it would seem that they would focus on the areas where they have a comfort level. And So that leaves a number of areas supported primarily by men. And that's evident in our region that we've seen with city councils, where the majority of the councilors are men. Only 20% are women. And so we're talking about women in decision-making positions when you've got 20% of the women as councilors for 51% population being women. There's an issue there. So in a lot of cases, women aren't involved in these decision-making areas. When we've got 3,500 mayors in the country, and of that only 19% are women, there's certainly some room. The recent federal election, there was an increase by 1%. So 102 of 338 seats sitting in Parliament are women. So, it's nice to see some women in some strong positions in Parliament, but there's still room there as far as the impact in the community. And in leadership, there's a cross with women in leadership positions. Some have a real nurturing manner. They want to help their employees succeed to better things. But then there's others that are focused on their own success, no matter what happens. And the concept is that they have to work twice as hard to get half as far, which unfortunately tends to be true in a lot of cases. So. And the different perspectives, in the home, certainly most take the household into consideration on how the decisions, trying to balance everything with their family. In the workplace, absolutely a different perspective. They're looking at having everybody succeed and everybody get along. And whereas sometimes men are really looking at the business aspect. Women are looking, how does it affect any changes? How do they affect my employees? And then again, in the community with, the women are bringing the perspective for the greater part of the population. So if you look at 20% are counselors, they're speaking for 50, they need to speak louder for the 51% of the population. So I think that's probably it. And I definitely I think women's voices just need to be heard at all levels to make significant change.
That's terrific, Karin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next one up is Lezlie. Lezlie?
I thought this was going to be a different, I'm here. I just had to unmute. Can you hear me? I thought it was going to be a little different format. I'm one of those people that I respond to what people say. So I thought it was be one question, go around, next question, go around. So excuse me if my thoughts are all over the place.
Oh, it's okay. We just thought it might be quicker.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a talker, so watch out. Anyway, we embody the essence. To embody the essence of the community, the first one, after what I just talked about in the beginning about them blocking off the library for the homeless, I hate to think that that's the essence of the community that women are putting out there. I think all of the nurturing and the great programs we have are headed up by women. The overall workings are still perpetuated by the men. So often we'll see women I watch as women get into positions. They'll get into positions of political power, business power, but they always have to pull back if they want to maintain that position and not really say what they really want to do. And tonight, for instance, they were talking about women not being in politics. Years and years ago, I was involved in political party, and we did a whole task force on women being involved in politics. And the problems that existed, and this was back in 87, I believe it was, 87. The same problems for women getting into politics exist today. And also with our nature, I think part of the problem is women don't want to be a part of that ugly political process that has taken over in the political legislatures and town halls and so on. So we are the essence of a community when it comes to the caring and giving. I really don't think we would have any compassion in St. Catharines or anywhere else if it wasn't for the work that women have been doing forever and continue to do and somehow juggle everything else they have to do to make sure it happens. Second question, identify what is needed for the, identify what is needed for women identify. Yes, we do. That goes back to my first response where I said that we do what is needed. One of the things that I think we do is that we miss out on, well, I'll answer the third question and I'll talk about that. And women bring a different perspective. Yes, we do bring a different perspective if we can get our word out. It's very difficult to get our word out. And as much as we're trying to change it so that we're all the same in everything, men and women are the same, men are still being raised differently than women are being raised. And we give up a lot of our self-love to do what we need to do. And that's, we need to make sure that is strengthened within our young little sisters. And one of the things that I was thinking about recently is how we have, when I was involved with BPW and involved in politics, there were all these things that we had to do. NAC, National Action Committee for the Status of Women used to exist. And we had, and I was talking to someone about it the other day, we had all political parties were involved in that. All organizations were involved, but somehow we as women have started to follow on that slope of dissension and disagreement and polarization that men are also in politics are pursuing. Because NAC was all political parties. I remember going to a thing where it was Liberals, Conservatives, NDP. And sure, we had different points of view, but that was solidified very quickly when I attended a meeting in Hamilton and communist women were there. All of a sudden, the three main political parties didn't have any differences because now there was someone else who was even more extreme than we were. It was quite an interesting, but we all got along and we all shared the same issues. And that was a long time ago. And I took my goddaughter to see the filming of Flora MacDonald when she ran for the leadership. She was the first woman to run for leadership of a mainstream political party. And I also attend, pardon me?
I said she was a very good woman.
Linda, you said something?
Flora MacDonald, she was a very good woman.
She was excellent. And her book there's a book out about her life and I've bought it for my goddaughter. I took my goddaughter to see the film and Emily, I guess, was in her mid-20s at the time when the film was shown. And she left and she said, why aren't they teaching us in civics class? And it has me thinking too, that it seems to me in a lot of cases, we as women, once we didn't have daycare. When I first got involved, there really wasn't much daycare around. We've come a long way, you know, like that cigarette commercial, you know, you've come a long way, baby. Yeah. But what we did is our girls, our little sisters don't know what we went through to get where we are. Mm-hmm. We've forgotten about them. We've gone on and we go to night school and we belong to this, then we become president of that, we do this and that, yeah, but we haven't brought our little sisters along with us. And I think that's something that's missing from what has to happen. These young women with their children are trying to do it all and don't know that we've done a lot, what we've done already, and they don't know they can relax a little. We still have to tell them it's okay to be a mom. Yes. Remember back in the day when we had to tell women it's okay to be an at-home mom? We don't seem to even be allowed to say that anymore. It's like we put this pressure on our little sisters, and I hope that we'll try to not do that. And also now this may be controversial and I'm sure it will be, but that's okay because I'm old now and I don't care. But as you, Linda, have taken empowerment out of your vocabulary, I'm now taking political correctness out of my vocabulary.
Oh, amen to that, sister.
Because it's taking away from the narrative. We're not able to have a good discussion. And there's things that I wish I knew who these people were that are able to come up with these expressions and they become part of the mainstream communications. Like I remember when I first heard the word racialized, I was like, oh God, please do not let that catch on. I'm not a one-dimensional person, but of course it's caught on and I'm a victim. I refuse to be a victim, absolutely refuse. So that's my one rant. But my other rant that has come to me very clearly when, I guess it was Rosemary mentioned about that during COVID, the responsibilities that we've had as women to do all these things. one of the things that I've noticed being in tourism and a woman, and I'm not in tourism because I'm a woman, I just want people to know about Black history. I just happen to be a Black woman that talks about Black history. And what bothers me is that I realize nurses, female teacher, a lot of the female professions have been incredibly hit with the COVID. I'm in tourism. I don't know the stats on this, but I just wrote the finance minister today to point out to our big sister in finance that as they have they're rejigging the programs to get us through the pandemic, that they're ostracizing and abandoning women because women are sole proprietors, retail stores. I have a travel company, and what do we need a bridge. And of course, governments like to brag, oh, we've got all these women, but then when it comes to the nuts and bolts, they'll act like men. I like Minister Freeland, but so I wrote to her today to make her aware of the fact that as finance minister, she's left her sisterhood behind, and they really need to look at that. So that's my rant. Spur of the moment with a cold and flu. I hope I wasn't too delirious.
Oh, this was great.
Wow. I think I answered all the questions.
Lezlie, that was absolutely marvelous. It wasn't a rant. It was, you spoke from your heart. Mm-hmm. And I honor that and respect that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Linda.
I wish you write it all down.
Pardon me?
Write it all down.
I wish. No, Teflon brain.
I honestly think that this particular roundtable, this gathering, is going to have far-reaching long-term effects because we're beginning to speak to each other as women, uncensored. And that's what we need to do. And it's not about being, I mean, I think we're of an age. We probably cut our teeth with the feminist movement. And as you're right, we take it for granted to a large extent. And it's time that we stop doing that. It's time I love the way you put that, Lezlie, our little sisters, bring in our little sisters. Because if you look, we've got a demographic here that's pretty much on the same wavelength and age-wise. And we're not passing the torch to our younger sisters. And that's what we need to do. But at the same time, we need to avoid the, as you say, political correctness, because I've come across younger women who jump on the politically correct bandwagon to the extent that they don't even listen. And there's one particular young woman that I came across, and she made an assumption about me. Didn't bother to ask, she just made an assumption. And I got inordinately irritated by it because I ended up saying to her, why do you assume that you know more about me without asking me? You have no idea where I come from on this.
Try being a Black woman.
Well,
there was a lot of assumptions made about me. First of all, I don't come from the islands.
Well,
a lot of people, so when people say I come from the islands, I tell them I come from the Niagara Peninsula cut off by the Welland Canal.
Well, later on we'll talk about this because it's something I will share with you, because my first teaching position was in a Black school in Nova Scotia. And I loved those children like they were my own. And this young woman assumed I knew nothing about it. That's what I mean about making assumptions and making blanket assumptions and judgments about people without learning about them. So thank you so much. I do wish you'd write all that down. So the next one is Jane. Jane Hanlon.
She's
Where's
there.
Jane?
Am I unmuted now?
You figured it out, did you?
Okay. So I also made notes, but I didn't quite follow all of the points are covered, but not necessarily in the order that they appear. So
well,
I
you
wanted,
always were a rebel, Jane.
all right, I know, I just can't follow a straight line, that's all. So there are a few words and perceptions of women, and absolutely true, the majority of women, gentle, subtle, or some of the words that have come up today. And I didn't get those. I didn't get that training. I don't have it, and I don't understand it. Women do have an inherent strength, but I think some of what you're referring to with our little sisters is, and wondering why they don't have the capacity we do. We are of an age, we are crones. We have entered the period of time where we should be in the community. This is our job, and this discussion is part of it. So beginning with that, I want to throw out there that, as we all know, the world is in a friggin' mess. They're hanging by a thread and no time to waste. In previous times, in previous cultures, the Celts, Egyptians, Japanese, Greek, Amazonians, Italians, Chinese, they have all stepped up to the plate as women en masse to get the job done, to step in when enough is enough. And so, you know, if I only have 5 minutes with you guys, that's my point. Now, Stephen Lewis, he worked with Grandmothers for Change, who worked in AIDS. It's not that it's unheard of, not that it's not done. We just don't step up. Women are no longer connected. The more decentralized and complicated our society becomes, the less we connect and communicate. So even today, to maintain communication, we're doing this through a pandemic online. It gets a little challenging, but the point is that the whole thing is prone to collapse. Our communication with each other is prone to collapse. There is that opportunity, that possibility, and the society as we know it is prone to collapse. We've got decentralized, we've got our central banks that are using a fiat system for so long that there is no gold standard propping up the money. The US dollar, I don't know how much to get into, but it's a freaking mess. We are expecting, or rather what we require is a step down in what we consume. We have to produce less, we have to consume less. Now, this is women do the shopping. Women do the basic home, community, what it is we need. Okay, so where are the people stepping together saying we need to stop wanting everything that glistens, everything that glitters? Women need to reevaluate priorities. We all do, men and women, but women need to reevaluate priorities and get that on the national table and the international table, but at least in our own homes and our own communities, get that on the table. What are our priorities? So I'm hoping, I'm still hoping. Did I answer all of them? What do I see? Do I think women embody the essence of the community? Not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing self-interest. I'm seeing a capitalist system that most women are caught up in. Mm-hmm. Women identify what's needed for a healthy, balanced community. I'm not seeing that until the crone years. It's not until the crone years that we're intended to protect the community now that our children are gone. It's our job.
But Jane, I'm going to challenge you on that one.
Okay.
Not until the crone years.
Yes. There are women that step up sooner. Absolutely. There are women who are community minded, who are more open, have more chutzpah.
Yeah.
But not many. Not many. We've set them up that they've got student debt, young families, childcare. need to hold together a job, they're not able to take it on.
That's interesting. So are you is your perception that because we've encouraged the younger women to take proper careers, well, more significant careers, and then they get burdened with children and childcare and looking after the home and their jobs, is it that they don't have the energy or the time to get more involved?
I don't think they have the foresight. I don't think they can see past what they need to do tomorrow.
Can I jump in there? I think a lot,
Yeah.
some of it has to do with the conditioning. I was conditioned to participate in service organizations from the time I was young. I was in a sorority in high school. I was involved in BPW through my mom. I was involved in the political party, knocking on doors and whatnot. But that came from my mother being involved in service organizations as well. And my mother was a single mom with it, you know, trying to deal with bringing me up with no money and all that kind of carry on, no daycare. And, but she still recognized her community social responsibility. And I think that's missing, is we're not teaching our young girls or our young boys that, you know, you have to do community service instead of like, they've got to pay me for it then.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. That is where it stems from. And I also have that kind of upbringing where there is a day-to-day, you are responsible for anyone smaller, weaker, you know, it's your job.
But the other thing, when I belong, when I belonged to BPW, it was interesting to me that some of the women that came were women who were young moms with kids, and there one night they weren't there for the political part of it like I was, to enhance women's position in the country and the world. They were there for a night out on a Thursday and have dinner with other women, which was fine. It surprised me at the time because I thought everybody was there for the same reason, but we don't even do that hardly anymore.
Now, the other thing that we're not teaching the young girls, the little sisters, whatever, is that every generation needs to protect what was built on the shoulders of the previous. We've seen in Texas, it completely eroded. We've seen in the Middle East, such a step back. We've seen education pulled back and yanked back. There is nothing written, nothing that guarantees that what we have today, the capacity we have today, will be here tomorrow, unless our girls, our women protect it and fight for the next step. Yeah.
Excellent. I was just reminded, Jocelyn said that I forgot too that it's being recorded. So this is great because from all this, I think it'd be very valuable to be able to take a transcript of it all and put everybody's ideas together.
Okay, that will be available once we get this on YouTube, because it's my understanding that there's a new feature there, and that the feature would be available for us, but we'll have to check it out. If it's not, I volunteer to type it all up. Okay, guys?
What? You're volunteering?
Yep.
Oh my goodness, Jocelyn, you deserve a medal.
Yeah. So
you don't have voice to tape? You must have.
I don't have that. No.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, but don't worry, we'll figure this out.
Jane, are you finished?
Yes, I am.
Okay, love. So we'll go on to JoAnne. Where's JoAnne?
Hi there, thanks. Well, I'm definitely in good company. So thanks for the invitation. I think what I'm hearing with some of the other presenters is we're really talking about our experience. And so, you know, my experience, you know, is similar to some of the previous presenters. So when I was asked, do women embody the essence of the community? For me, it's yes. You know, I consider myself very fortunate. I grew up in a home. I've worked with organizations. I volunteered with women's organizations that, in my opinion, do embody the essence of that space or that sector? Do women identify as what's needed for a healthy, balanced community? You know, in my world of the nonprofit sector, and I'm absolutely no expert, especially in the company of Susan, but here we're dealing with the sector that is so instrumental in the success of our country. It is a sector that is, primarily employed by women. However, they don't lead the sector. They're not primarily in leadership positions. So, in my experience, women in the sector, in my work, in my volunteerism, in my community, they're the biggest asset, the biggest contributor. But there's so much work yet to be done because they're not equally represented in leadership positions. So I think we have a long way to go. Do I think women bring different perspectives in decision-making? Absolutely. In my experience, tremendous sense of compassion, knowledge, understanding. When I think of, the volunteer sector, for example, the last I read, it's probably 50-50 with respect to gender, but the contributions that women are making and young girls are making, primarily young people in the volunteer sector, the contributions they're making to our community is tremendous. So I think we know what needs to be done, whether it's volunteerism, the corporate sector, the political space. We just have a long way to go because, even when you think about COVID, the last 2 years of my my work life has been really trying to support vulnerable populations impacted by COVID. And those vulnerable populations are primarily women. So, this pandemic has really shown how vulnerable women are in our country and in our area. And we need to do a better job. And if COVID has taught us anything, is we do need to do a better job in giving women the supports they need to be their best selves and to have successful companies and healthy families and take care of family and take care of their children. It's also very important. And the final question in light, do I perceive women in a stronger light? Well, just with the company I'm in tonight, for sure. But I've always felt that way. And I've been fortunate to work with very influential women in my career, in my volunteer life, and in my family life.
Thank you. You did that so succinctly. But that's a beautiful perspective that you brought to that, JoAnne, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next one is Lynn. Where's Lynn?
Am I on? Did I unmute? I did. Good. All right. Well, I could say ditto, ditto, and ditto, because there's been so much said already that I definitely do agree with. Now, I don't have a lot of the amazing backgrounds that I've heard tonight. I have a very traditional food background, which I guess maybe that's where my difference is. Anyway, I hope to say some of the same things, but maybe with a different perspective. So I was, I'll share some of my experiences. I was born into an Italian, very traditional Italian family. And I learned two really important things. Number one was the value of community. So I'll talk about my experiences with that. The other thing I learned was gender inequality. So there we go. In terms of gender inequality, when I was growing up, the boys were gods and the girls were brought up to do all of the other stuff, like the housework and the cooking and the cleaning and all of that stuff. But the guys, no. They were like gods. And so when it came time, the guys got the talk on university, right? And when it came time for me, I got the talk on the value of marriage. So, I know that was a long time ago, but I'm not sure we're doing any better today. And I bring that up only because I've heard a lot of talk of the difference between men and women. And I think for me, I always try to find out why. Why is it that these things, and I'm not disagreeing with anything that I've heard tonight. As a matter of fact, I agree with it. But why is that? And I look at my own background and I think, okay, maybe we can, you know, have some answers right there. As a result, I became a feminist at a very young age. And yet, you know, at 17 and 18, just it came out as rebellion. And of course, then I was the black sheep of the family. So, and in terms of community, that was a much more positive experience, right? Because the women, my grandmother was the matriarch of the family. She had, her feet were very well rooted in the ground, and she sort of managed the entire family and made sure that everything was well. And we all had our own jobs, we had our own roles, we had our own positions in the family, and she was sort of the orchestrator of the whole family. But it went beyond there, didn't it? Because again, the food influenced. We grew a lot of our own food. We were very poor. And so we would use food to do a lot of things. For example, when I was growing up, you know, the farm workers, they weren't imported people from somewhere else. They were the Italian ladies. I don't know if you remember that. The Italian ladies in the community were the farm workers. And so they would all go and pick, and they would bring seconds. And when they got off the farm truck, they would come to our house and they would share this food. We would take the food, we would either can it or bake it or do something with it. And then in turn, we would go and visit someone else. We would nurture the sick and mourn the dead and celebrate a birth. And we used food as a tool. And it was actually through that we took a group of houses and we made it a community, because we were out there. And we were nurturing. I don't like that word because I think it's been so overused, but we did that, didn't we? We nurtured. And so I learned the value of community in the most positive sense. But I also learned that it was the women that created the community in support of the man, because the man went to work and he made the money and he came home and he sat there. And I have visions of my grandfather night after night after night. I loved him dearly, but he just sat there and drank his wine until it was time to go to work the next day, because the women did everything else. So I think as when I grew up, I thought it was, okay, so now it's my responsibility to teach my children differently, because it's because women have a great value, a value equal to men, but it wasn't being seen, appreciated, sought after, or acknowledged. So, you know, then I went out to work. And, you know, it's really funny. I wanted to play in the man's world, you know, and I wanted to play in the man's game. So in terms of business, and I got there. And when I was there, I have to tell you, I was so disappointed, because I discovered that it wasn't anything to aspire to, because in the man's world, it was in the man's business world, it was cruel and rigid and destructive and confrontational. We just have to look at the environment or the agriculture and we can see how man sort of wants to dominate, instead of, I think a woman wants to work with nature instead. And anyway, so I experienced all those things, like being paid less than a man, or in reaching the glass ceiling and all of those things. But I decided to leave because I wanted to do things on my own terms. I wanted to do things my own way. I needed to do things in a sense of community. And so I guess, Linda, you're going to have to repeat the questions, because I think I've answered them, but I'm not sure if I have or not. But, you know, I picked a very traditional role. I mean, food writer. I mean, talk about gender specific, right? And so it's been, that alone has been very challenging. And I find in the food world that I think we've lost a lot of ground. Food is about self-care. Food is about nourishing your body. And I don't understand how you can relinquish it to anyone else. I think in the food industry, we have, instead of teaching men that they should cook to nourish themselves, we have taught women that it's the time in the kitchen is useless. You can microwave something, or you don't have to spend time in the kitchen. And now we end up with a pandemic of obesity and diabetes and heart disease and all of these other diet-related diseases. So that hasn't really worked out. I think that's one of my rants there. You know, that we have a healthcare system that doesn't care about food and a food system that doesn't care about our health. But anyway, I think to summarize, I think, I think women need to do things their own way and have a stronger voice. And I'm not sure how to do that. I don't see a lot of that happening, but I do have a lot of hope that it'll happen. Did I answer any of those questions? I think
I feel you did.
Good.
One of the things I just want to say before we go on to Susan is I have wondered about the Italian background that you talked about, because I thought it was just my reading of it. I thought maybe I over exaggerated the way I looked at it, but you just confirmed what I thought. The boys were the gods and the girls were in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not restricted to Italian. I cut my political teeth in 1981, 2 in England. And it was the time when we actually went door to door and canvassed. And it blew me away in the part of Yorkshire where I was. A woman would come to the door and I would be standing there with my questions. And she'd say, "Oh, I'll have to ask my husband."
Yeah.
That was in Yorkshire in England. And I used to get so angry and I'd say, "I don't want to know what your husband wants you to say. I want to know what you think." And the majority of them didn't know because they were brought up to think the men were the ones who could think.
We had to be quiet. We had to be unseen.
Yeah.
I think as women, we're better givers than we are receivers. And men, I think, are better receivers than they are givers. And I attribute it to, my upbringing. And
But I got to tell you, Lynn, since I got started in Niagara Falls politics, the ones that really bash me the most are the Italian men.
Yes, because the Italian, in my opinion, anyway, they're afraid of things they don't know, and they don't, and so I think sometimes it's very typical that they try to intimidate because they're afraid of what they don't know. So intimidation is, what is it, male superiority? I don't want to get into feminist talk.
Misogyny.
Yeah. Okay,
I wouldn't say it's just Italian men, though. I wouldn't say it's just Italian men, though. In some cases, me being in tourism, sometimes it's just Niagara Falls. But I mean, that can happen. I have friends that have issues. My girlfriend, I don't know what her opinions are on anything anymore. And she's my age. And you ask her and she'll say, "Well, Don says this." And it's like, where are you? Have I lost you somewhere? So it's not necessarily our mother's generation that's like that. I can find that with my generation. You can find it with the younger generation. Yeah. It's not an Italian man thing. It's like a societal thing in some families.
I think it's all about fear. One way to deal with fear is intimidation. So that's what I've learned anyway. But anyway, I'm still trying to unlearn a lot of the lessons of gender inequality that I internalized as a child. I think it's a lifelong thing. I'm going to die with these struggles. So
Can I just tell you, Lynn, though, when you were telling your story, the way you were raised, you provided the things that we need.
Yeah.
And that's so important, and it should never be minimized. That's what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, the only thing that was wrong with your mother's generation, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day, is how could someone live in a country and never speak the language? And a lot of these Italian women never learned English.
Wow.
They've been here since the early 50s and they never learned English.
Okay, but here's the thing about that, because my grandmother never spoke a word of English, right? And so, well, when I was raised, I had to learn English to go to kindergarten. But okay, so here's the thing. It's that, you know, that there's Italian communities. So it's the community that allowed them to not learn the English because the community was so strong. So there's an example of a strong community.
Yeah, and that's and as we talked about it the other day, that's what came out, that they never had to. But it's like, oh my gosh, there's got to be some time in your life where you're alone and you can't communicate, like, the thing, you know what I mean? I just can't imagine what that would have been like.
Mm-hmm. And you know, the other reason was they didn't want to come here to begin with. I mean, they left Italy because there was no jobs and they would have starved. So here they come and they bring their culture with them, and they really did not have an interest in, Although my mother, because you see, back then it was the Italians that were persecuted, right? So we were WAPs, whatever. And so my mom wanted to be the Canadian. So she abandoned all of the traditions and she wanted to become the Canadian. So there was no English spoken in our house after a certain, no, there was no Italian spoken in our house after a certain point, because it was just, you know, we had to be Canadian. So different generations, right?
This is all fascinating.
But
I'm learning so much.
The gender thing it still perpetuates today that men are or little boys are taught to be very hard, not to be a sissy, not to cry, to play with toys, to be the breadwinner, to be someone that looks after someone and pays for things, like pays for the dinner if they take out a woman in. And the girl is taught to be softer and to do the housework and so it just gets it just gets perpetuated from generation to generation. And that's why I always say, you know, we have to look at the way we raise children, and maybe if we start there, maybe in 50 to 100 years, we'd have a different gender conversation, because the issues today really aren't gender specific unless we make it gender specific. They're really issue specifics. And someone the other day told me, well, you know, it's just our culture. But here's the thing, is that culture doesn't make a people, it's people that make a culture. So we do have the ability to change that.
Very wise words. Thank you. So now we have Susan. Susan?
Wow. I don't know what I can possibly add, but I do have a shout out to Niagara Falls. About just a little over a year ago, I was called by the region to go into Niagara Falls to quickly organize a shelter and some drop-in centers. I held one meeting, and by the end of that meeting, that whole community had rallied. And we were able to have 2 drop-in centers, and St. Andrew's Shelter is still running. It had run 1 year under Project Share. They didn't want to do it anymore, so it sort of dropped on my lap as ED of Start Me Up Niagara. Anyone in Niagara Falls, you should be really proud of. Even with all the pressure you get about nobody caring, there were a lot of people that stepped up to the plate immediately and solved a problem. So people had a place to go, and during the day and at night, and it was really a miracle. And I think my second shout out goes to Lynn, because Lynn is teaching me about food and eating and being healthy, and I really appreciate that. I'm an English child, I grew up in an English home. My grandparents came probably about 1890 and some before that. So we were kind of English. There were 2 girls in my family. I had no idea that there were any gender differences. My mother worked. I was the only kid in school that had a mother that worked. My father worked. We all worked together. I could catch a baseball that was thrown at the speed, you know, my 200-pound father could try to break my hand off throwing the ball hard. But we kind of, I actually didn't know. I didn't know. And then I went to teachers college, not because I was going to help little children especially, but my parents were really proud that I could go to teachers college and that I was going to be a teacher. So I took a step up and I was really proud of being a teacher. And I married a teacher. I married an Italian teacher who came here in 1952, who lived in one of those households like Lynn talks about, where it was food and funerals. You had to get food down and you had to get funerals down, and you could pretty well work your way through that. My mother-in-law barely spoke English. Her children protected her and loved her until the day she died. But my mother-in-law actually was the power in that family. And she may have been getting up to pour the coffee or not looking, you know, not looking like she had the power, but she definitely had the power. So I think it's a very, very, very complicated thing. I was very glad that I married an Italian person because it opened me up to a culture, because I think you can get very in your culture and get very insular. Now, when I'm thinking about home and I'm thinking about female and I'm thinking about issues in the home, I'm just wondering if we're really moving towards a more genderless, gender-defined relationship to our home. I think through the years and through history, women have been like the glue in the home. Men are off hunting, gathering, working, doing whatever. But I think there is a movement, at least in what I can see with my own children and the younger people I see, of fathers being more involved, more intuitive, developing skills with their children, assisting with the duties, and the mom going out to work. As I sort of saw the world, I quickly learned that there were gaps in my equality. When I applied for a bank loan and I couldn't get it unless my husband, who had not even taught as long as I had, signed for a bank loan for me. Yeah. I did notice that in the school system, all the leadership positions were male. I had never really noticed that before. So the world sort of opened up to me. And when I was living in my little apartment on Ted Street with a little baby, listening to Laura Sabia on the radio in the morning, Germaine Greer, Judy LaMarche, Golda Meir, like they just opened up my world. And I've always been a person that loves to learn and loves to open up. So I think in the family, I think the women, I think there's a changing role in the family today. And I'm almost an octogenarian, I can't even say it, but like I'm going to be saying goodbye to the 70s very soon. And I think that there is an evolution in your life too. Like when I was younger, I was so fighting. We had to get those rights. We had to do that. And as I've moved on, I've just found out that having wars and having fights doesn't actually get me too far, because it's not really who I am. So as I developed who I am and what's important to me, then I was able to take me out into the broader workplace and into the broader community. And that doesn't happen easily. That's really hard. I can remember when I wanted to run for school trustee because they were taking librarians out of libraries, and how could my children ever learn without librarians in libraries? So I went out bravely, I think, but I was wearing my mother's dress and my mother's coat because I didn't have a nice coat or a nice dress. My husband painted 6 signs, and every 3 days we moved the signs to different neighborhoods. So people would think I had overwhelming support. So when I think I'm a doer. So when I saw a problem, I figured out a way to solve it. And I had to use who I am to help me solve those problems. And I think if we can respect who we are ourselves and celebrate who we are and what we have, we can take those gifts into the workplace and into the community, and certainly into our home. I'm a white woman of privilege, and there is no way I can deny that for a moment. I can remember as an elected school board trustee driving, I don't know where, somewhere around Ottawa, sitting in a room where there were only 2 females and maybe 200 males. This was education, this was trustees, this was teacher leaders. And look where we are now. So we can't deny that we haven't made progress. But what I'm afraid I see in the workplace is that I see a lot of women not being kind to other women. I hear comments like, how do you like working for so many skirts? We're not answering them. Like, we have to make ourselves heard, so that the men who I don't think are even aware of how they are sort of socialized to just think this is just how guys act. So I think we have to really start calling things. And I think we have to be kinder to each other as women. Just way too much criticism, comment. We really have to be kinder to each other. We certainly can't expect that men are going to be kinder to us when they can sort of split us up with little comments and we don't call them down. And then we do exactly the same thing. So I think that we have a role to play as females. We have a role to play as the people that we are meant to be and that we've developed into. And we need to use our voices and not be afraid of being put down. In the community, I think that we really understand, or many of us understand, many of us who maybe aren't dealing with the daily stress of trying to figure out how to pay the rent and how to do this and how to do that. Many of us, I think, have time to really think about how we can contribute to the community and bring our other sisters in. And, you know, and every time that you have a chance for people to have a voice somehow or other, take the time to let them have their voice, and don't think you actually know what they want, because most of the time you're so far off base, you're going to feel stupid when you go home after having these conversations. You just have to dump your preconceptions. The big question I have is, why do women want to be involved in politics when they look at it closely? Can they influence things in different ways? Should we be just running a slate of female candidates, say for regional council or somewhere? You vote the slate and you get all females. Like, how can we actually solve some of these issues? Because men are anyone in power is going to dig in deeper when they figure they're losing power. So I think there's going to be some really rough days ahead. I think as women, we have the responsibility, with youth, especially male youth. Like, you can't just have your daughters ready to accept the new world and take it. You've got to have your sons prepared too. You've got to talk to your spouses. You've got to call things. It's because we're all in this as people, and it's people that are in the homes, people that are in the workplace, and people that are in the community. So we're all kind of in this together. But you know, when I think about poverty and women, we call this the pink recession. Females, we have the lowest rate of participation in the labor market today in 20 years. We were the first ones out, and we're going to be the last ones in, because we take our responsibility to our children very, very, very seriously. You know, childcare, where is it? Why hasn't Ontario signed on? That is the biggest economic driver that we can actually have. In Quebec, where they've had the $10 childcare, not only has the economy and the income levels of families improved, the birth rate's gone up, educational rates have gone up. Like, these are issues that we can all be speaking of from a gender lens to these men, that if we can frame it in language they understand, maybe are going to start moving. I thought I actually had nothing to say, but I'm kind of one of these people when I just keep going. I have loved working in this community. I have just had so many wonderful experiences, and I work with people that are often not heard. And I've always just my purpose was to try to give them a voice so that people see they're not just homeless, they're not just unemployed, they're not just racialized. They're people just like the rest of us. And now I'm retired and I'm trying to find a place to put my voice. I think I probably will. But to me, it's been a joy. It's been a joy to watch this. But as every woman around this table, you have to stay educated. You have to stay on the issues. You have to make your voice heard. You don't have to be in a war. You just have to understand the gaps and the background and make a plan to make a difference.
I'm so grateful to you, Susan, for saying all that. You covered so many bases, and it was wonderful. And as an aside, I did visit the St. Andrew's Drop-In Center. And they do a wonderful job there. They really do. There's so much, my goodness, there's so much come out of all this. I'm excited because it is triggering so much. And I think, wouldn't it be wonderful if this group could get together more often and just see what we could do in our own communities? Because what a marvelous group of women all together. It's just amazing.
Could I add one thing, Linda? Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Last night I participated in a roundtable on childcare. Everyone around this table could call a conservative member of parliament, somebody to move that issue forward. That's a concrete effort you could make. But the stunning thing to me around that roundtable last night were young women, 40-year-old women with doctorates, with 2 master's degrees on parliamentary committees. Like, it was amazing. I agree. Let's get together.
Speaking of writing, no, I'm following up with something you were saying, Susan. I'm on, I don't like the name, but I'm on the homeless committee in Niagara Falls. And one of the things, yeah, I know.
You know, homeless committees, are they supporting homelessness? Is this what you're doing?
Well, we're supposed to be finding solutions.
Right.
But it's just been an exercise in futility because nobody does anything. But what I wanted to share with everybody is that the staff at Region are doing amazing things. We've got a bridge housing project that'll be occupied in mid-December. And another one, it's not exactly sheltered, it's transitional housing.
Right, palliative sort of.
2 marvelous projects coming up. But one of the things that I learned from the women in charge at the Region is it's a funding thing. Now, one of the problems we have in Niagara Falls is that the city just ducks it and says, oh, it's a regional thing. But at Region, that group there that are working on it, they're amazing. And they're so forward thinking and collaborative and amazingly innovative. And one of the biggest problems, and this is where everybody could get in their own community, write to conservative elected MPPs and say, we need a definite policy provincially to address the issue of people who don't have homes. Now, the 2 projects in Niagara Falls that I like so much is that they've got 24/7 medical help. They're teaching them life skills. And they're actually working with the people who are eligible to be in there to then be independent and self-sustained. And that to me is the answer, because it's no good just saying, oh, we'll give you a mattress for the night. They need to be rehabilitated. So this is where we can all write to our MPPs and say, this is a priority. Well, one of the priorities that we need.
Okay. And well, I'm going to just sort of say something, like just to mat on the floor, just something. People need to feel safe. If you can make people safe by whatever you can offer them, then their brain can start clicking in and they can participate in decision making and moving forward.
Yeah, they have to be safe and looked after.
And can you tell them at the Region too that when they build these places, there's one here on Church Street in downtown St. Catharines that's opened, and there's a program for housing where you sort of mix the housing up a bit so that those that are a little bit down get brought up by other people that are in the area. And I like that concept, and I can get the actual information if anybody wants it. But the other thing is, I feel so badly, again, they build it, everybody, all the politicians think they've done great jobs. The bureaucrats think they've done their job. There's no green space for these people. They have to sit out in the front of the building. There's no, it's like they put it up there and then they just kind of, well, we've done our job. What more do you want? And if you say something to them, that's how they're going to treat you too. And I just think it's sad. I see them sitting outside in those hot summer days with nothing. They didn't put in a green space for them. It doesn't have to be one to accommodate everybody, but some green space. And
Because
I just think
you're right, Lezlie. In so many ways, they just think from a utilitarian point of view, and they don't look at the aesthetics. They don't look at what do human beings need.
And the police are there constantly.
But you also have to realize that they have to have so many units to make it viable. And like, there's just so many complications in all this planning. Green space to me is really important.
Absolutely. It's essential.
They have
It's
to
like
drop
plumbing.
down a floor. That means they got to spread out more because the neighbors didn't want that extra floor. Like, it's really hard. Yeah.
We're going to run out of time.
This was good.
Isn't
We've
it
got
wonderful?
10 minutes left.
I just want to say one more thing, and it's just, I'm going to throw it out there for everybody, because one of the things that has been coming to me lately is that in many ways, what we've been seeing in social media is so many attacks from men in politics and the women in politics, and there's this all the time. And what we're seeing is an increase in the divisiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about it, not from a political point of view, because I'm trying to, I don't think everything is political. I think a lot of it is on an energy level. And we're seeing so many men who are now being, some of them are being emasculated. And they don't know what they can say anymore. And there are others who are just so determined to hold on to control. The energy there is like a wounded animal that will just lash out and attack. And I don't know what the whole answer is, but I think if women, that's why the whole point was women knowing their value and women acknowledging or just learning about the power they do have. They don't have to attack the men. They don't have to emasculate them to win. They just need to use their own feminine energy. And we all know, I mean, Lynn was talking about the Italian grandmother. And I look back at when I was a teacher, I could walk into a class of 39 children who were raising hell because they've been left on their own. They weren't my children. My children wouldn't do that. But I could walk into a classroom like that and just stand there and look. And the noise level would come right down. And they'd all sit and I'd say, now, what are we going to do about this? And that's the power of a woman. I did it when I ran the caucus office. The MLAs knew if Linda looked at them in a certain way, they'd say, okay, what am I missing? And that's what we need to teach our young women. They don't have to be sable rattlers. They just need to be centered in their own power. And that's what we need to teach. And I would love to say, I'd love to have everybody's email so that we could have our own little email chain and share thoughts and ideas, because Lynn came up with it when we were talking on the phone. Linda, wouldn't it be great if we could have an outdoor meeting? And I think that would be so invigorating. And then in our own, see, I'm getting excited, in our own little communities, we could have reach out groups to talk to the young women. And as Lezlie said, teach the little sisters. And, you know, it struck me, I got this image that one of the things that we could share with the little sisters is that we're like the butterflies that came out of the chrysalis. And right now they're in a chrysalis. And they need to find their wings and fly. I'm mixing metaphors like mad here because I'm excited, but we need to start sharing with our young people. I mean, I did that with my daughter. She was 3 when I got started in politics. And bless her heart, I didn't push it. She just absorbed it all, but we didn't talk about it. And then when the year she could vote, she'd been 2 years at university, and I didn't think she had been paying much attention. And she came home one day and she said, "Mom, please don't be angry, but I can't vote." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to be angry. Why can you not vote?" She said, "Because I've gone through every single candidates meeting, all candidates meetings. I've read all the literature, and there's not one of them I trust with my vote." I said, "Well, that's perfect. That's a wonderful answer. I'm proud of you." And now she's on her own little citizens group in Toronto, ashing on at City Hall. And I didn't make her do that. She absorbed that. And I think that's wonderful. So thank you, everybody.
I'd like to have a vote. Can we extend this by at least 10, 15 minutes to give people a voice? Because, we've got 5 minutes left.
Sure.
I can stay a few minutes, but I have a webinar from Edmonton that I have to get on at 9 o'clock, but I'll go on a little later, but I can stay a few minutes.
And the other permission I'd like to have is when I do put this in YouTube, there's a place where I can actually put in all of our comments that have been put in the chat. Do I have everyone's permission for that? And if I don't, just email me at BPW Niagara Falls and let me know not to put yours in, and I won't.
Will you let us know when it goes on YouTube? Because I'm going to send this to my goddaughter, because I think my little sister, my goddaughter's my little sister. So you have to start somewhere. So I'll start with her. So I want to send
And
it
the
to
third
her.
thing I'd like to do right now is to please take a photo. So let's make ourselves all nice looking, please. And if you don't want your photo
Hey,
taken,
Charmaine, you have
just
to
take
come
off
up.
your video. Okay, you're
Show
allowed
us
to
your
do that.
face.
Make sure you're looking in the front, Nancy. Right? Look at me. Me. You're looking at your computer. There you go. There. Okay. 1, 2. I've done it. Thank you so much. Okay, now we could speak longer, and if you need to leave, please, of course, go ahead and leave, but I hope you don't. This is wonderful.
If I may say something, I've been sitting here listening to you ladies, and I am overwhelmed. I was excited about this before it started, but I have to say, I sure picked some amazing women, every one of you. I'm so proud of you. And I'm just thrilled because every one of you have brought new insights and new comments and have reinstated different thoughts in my head as well. And yeah, I think I did a good job calling all you ladies. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
I'm not usually this quiet. You might, some of us know that, but I've been enjoying sitting back and letting everyone else talk.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Yes, for sure.
I can't believe how wonderful this has been. We've talked about this sort of thing for a long time, and not just the people getting together, but the fact that there's so many things that need to be done. And I'm so excited too to see Parhiba, and now the other gal's gone now. But we have had, Jocelyn and I in particular, have had a wonderful time attending international BPW meetings. And it's such a pleasure for me to see you join us now this time. And I'm going to make an arrangement to go back to that because it needs to be done. I sit here and laugh because so many of us have said our mother has brought us to where we are. Think about it. Yeah. What are we doing with our own children and our children's children? and Leslie, you're so right. We have to bring it down to the younger people because they don't have a clue what we've gone through to get here. And I speak again from white privilege. And I know you're not supposed to say that anymore, but it's the truth. It exists.
I may not be white privilege, and that's another, I have a problem with that term too, because I tell people if you ever meet a woman in the Midwest US, I used to travel a lot for business, and you meet a woman in the Midwest, it's a single mom with 4 jobs and 3 kids, and tell her she has white privilege, she votes for Donald Trump. And I'm telling you. So
what I mean by white privilege is that I never had,
I understand.
Very well brought up child. I had nothing to worry about ever.
Yeah, but those terms that we use can be, so I'm gonna 86 that one too.
You're absolutely right. And we have to come up with new ones. But anyway, I could talk all night on this because it's so exciting to me. And please promise me that we will get together again.
Oh yeah.
Yes, please.
Because I think this is really important. What we talked about tonight needs to be done. And if we don't do it, it's not going to get done.
I would love to be able to jump in if I could.
Yes, please, Sherry, please.
I'm just like tweaking because it's like there's so many things that I want to say. But the big one was when we were talking about contacting our MPs and talking about low income housing and green space and all that. 100%. But I have to say, as somebody, I'm one of the founding members of the Niagara Falls Mental Health Committee. We're recognized by the city of Niagara Falls. And I've been doing a lot of research into learning more about the homeless situation. And I've been talking a lot with Lori Lococo and just really trying, it's very complicated. And I will say one thing I have discovered is that absolutely the root issue is mental health, because a lot of these people have unaddressed mental health issues. Then you add on top of that a drug problem. You're literally like, and then oftentimes that drug problem is a genetic component to their genetic makeup. Then you add on to that hunger, like it's such a multi-layered issue. But fixing the hunger is only a Band-Aid solution. Ford unfortunately cut the mental health advocates from the healthcare system. I think there's only 2 mental health advocates for the entire region. That's insane. I live across the street from the hospital. I literally see this happen on a regular basis. So a person who is displaced will go to the hospital to get help. They don't necessarily understand what is expected of them. So they're pushed through waiting rooms, intake nurses. So if they don't have somebody to advocate for them, to explain to the doctors and the nurses what they actually need, and to also have the training to be able to communicate with the person, that person is going to become frustrated, which is going to lead to hostility and aggression. And then their security is going to put them right back out in the street. I literally watch it happen. I'm exactly across the street from the emergency ward at Niagara Falls Hospital. And so this is what happens over and over. It's this cycle. Now, if they do actually go jump through all the hoops and they get to the end where they can actually see a doctor and they can communicate what their needs are, what they're told is, there's a waiting list for rehab facilities. We want to know that you're serious about recovery. So come back in 30 days after you've stayed sober for 30 days, and they're again put back out on the street. This is not a solution. You're setting them up to fail because they're going to go back to the only thing they know, and the people who they know are drug users and people in the same situation that they are. You cannot expect them to succeed. So low-income housing and all of that stuff is great, but there's the root of the problem needs to start with mental health advocacy. Get these people treated and on drugs, good drugs like medication, get them then in a rehab facility if there's a drug component there, and then teach them how to become good tenants. Because if you put them in low income housing without teaching them how to pay their bills, without teaching them how to be a good citizen, it's not going to work. And then, you know, like, so there's multi-layers, but if you guys want to know who to contact at the region to really push our regional government to provide funding, mental health funding, I can give you those contact numbers, because that's a huge part of the piece of the puzzle from my perspective. So thank you for letting me speak.
Sherry, if I could just tell you that the two the two projects that are going on up in Niagara Falls, they will have mental health professionals on site 24/7.
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
And so it's a horrible situation, but it's for the people who are on the list and they're eligible for this level of housing. It's only a drop in the bucket, but at least the one on Victoria Avenue and Armory Street, that's going to have self-contained units. They're going to have a communal kitchen, but they're also going to have their own kitchens. They're going to have life skills trainers who are going to teach them how to do budgets and manage their money. And they're going to have the medical health people on there and the healthcare people 24/7. The other one is going to be probably a next level up, but the bridge housing is geared towards people who need all the support network. And then once it's determined that they're able to be self-sustaining, then they will be able to go and get their own apartment. The other one, I can't remember exactly all the details, but it's similar. It's just sort of another level of care, but not as immediate as the first one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
I know a little bit about this one because Carl Stobie is actually offering primary care along with mental health care in these facilities. It's going to be pretty good. But you have to really, the region has adopted the housing first philosophy, which is house people first and then worry about the other pieces, because the housing has to be seen almost like a prescription for wellness. Get people inside so that you can start working with them on other issues.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make one comment about mental health, and I'm going to keep quiet. I just have had way too much. This is bringing back my past life, which I've been trying to get over. Homelessness, was that caused by mental illness, or did it cause mental illness?
Yeah. Very good point, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's both, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's never either or, right?
Yeah. I think probably in most cases it's both, you know, and inability to work through past traumas, not already feeling frustrated and down and depressed and not being able to hold down a job, all of that stuff, you know.
When you are totally in stress, overstressed, your amygdala is in charge. You don't have a chance to make decisions, think clearly. So folks are in a really, really tough spot. We've got to look at the social determinants of health, like what makes us all healthy, and see how we can apply it to their life too, to get stress levels down and get some thinking going on. And of course, proper mental health care that lasts for more than 1 hour and all the rest of it.
I'm delighted to hear. I
can't talk about housing. I'm getting over it.
I'm delighted to hear that I knew about those housing projects, but I did not know they had on-site mental health resources, because I think that's such a key component. Because if you just put them into housing without providing them the support, they're not gonna know how to pay their bills or how to manage their home unless they're taught and given
Some of them have
support.
Some of them have good memories of doing that in the past. They just need to be reminded.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a separate breed of human being. It's a human being that's run into problems, and so.
But I mean, if you add to that like a drug issue, like it's it's pretty heartbreaking. It's pretty heartbreaking when you think of
No idea.
what the majority of these people are dealing with, that frankly, it's like that saying of, you know, what's the saying of, if not for the grace of God, there go I. It's like, I've struggled with mental health issues in the past. The only thing really that separates me from them is that I have an amazingly supportive family, and I had resources within my own family that I could rely on. So if you don't have that, or you're estranged from your family, or you have childhood trauma that you haven't dealt with that has estranged you from your family, or there's a myriad of reasons. But that's, you know, it's not just this whole like go get a job thing. Just it infuriates me, because it's like it's so much bigger than just, you know, telling someone to go get a job. They can't be employable if they don't have a place to shower. They you know, how are you supposed to have a job if you're tweaked out on drugs because that's the only coping mechanism you have? Like, anyway, I'll stop now.
Anyways, the last year I was director of Start Me Up, which was a year ago, we had 64 funerals of people that lived on the streets or were precariously housed. And that's one small agency.
That's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking.
I hear that Pratibha is leaving us. She has another meeting to attend. We're so glad you were here. You live so far away, and it's your daytime on Friday now, so I understand that you have to work. Thank you so much, Pratibha.
Thank you, Pratibha.
Thank you all.
This has been marvelous. I'm looking forward to the next time.
Thank you. I would like to hear a couple of other observers who haven't actually said much. If you don't want to speak, that's fine. Some of you put notes in the chat, and that's good.
Well, I didn't say much, and I was I'm sorry, I wasn't quite sure what was expected of those answers. My main focus for the last 20 years has been animal rights, and in particular, the farm animals that are, you know, poorly treated and overlooked. And I sincerely believe if a society respects their most vulnerable, which to me are the animals, then the humans fall into place and everybody's well treated. So that's what I'm working on.
That's wonderful work, Mary Lou, sorry. I don't know if you've seen all the things from BC, but with all the floods, my heart is breaking about the animals that they've had to visit this week.
Yes.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And probably, I guess Nancy had, remember I brought up about I had been president of BPW?
Yeah.
I got involved because as a police officer, and I was the only one in Niagara Falls, actually. I was asked to come in and speak to the ladies, BPW, and I came in, and I think there was maybe 4, youngest maybe 80, and they were using a president from St. Catharines. So I spoke, and I said, what's going on here? And she said, oh, it's a club started in 1917. And I thought, this is really sad. You have no members. And she goes, would you like to join? And I said, well, yes, this is important. And she said, will you be president? And I told her at the time, I said, look, I'm because of my police career doing a lot of things, I'll tell you what, I'll double your membership, which was a big jump. And so I ended up getting the trophy for every year for the most members. And I did that through making the club exciting. I had a hooker come in and talk. So I knew all the street people. So she came in, and so we advertised it, and a lot of people showed up. I used my police connections. I had the canine unit come in. What's not great about watching a dog? And I had, one of the police officers, he was a blood spatter specialist. And I asked him, and he said, why would a group of women want to listen to blood spatters? I said, oh, and the room was full. Everybody wanted to listen. And that was before Dexter. And then I was also involved in the needle exchange program. So one of the men there had been he had been a heroin addict. He was clean now. So I had him come in and he was clean cut. And then he started telling them his story, you know, stealing from the grandparents. So it wasn't the policy thing, but we got the club going again. And then I was called in year 2000 to go teach at the police college. So that's when I said, okay, you're taking over.
We'll take you all back, okay? You guys come and see us and you'll be members again. We're meeting on Zoom until I would say March or April. So it's easy to meet every month.
Yes, I'm with the Peninsula Field Naturalists, and I'm on the executive there. Anything environmental and animals, that's quite a passion. And that was true in my bio about how I became a police officer. I don't know if you saw that, but I found out I wasn't planning on being a police officer. No desire. I wasn't planning on being a single mother either. So when I became a single mother, I needed some money, money and benefits. And I was hoping the post office would take me. So I went through, do you remember the blue pages? In the film book, the blue pages?
Yeah, I do.
Sat down for days. I went through every government thing in the blue pages and I applied. So I got called into the jail, Thorold Jail, started working there, and then the police called me. And
Wow.
So wish I could say it was my dream come true. It was simply to finance my child.
Now, we all have incredible stories and I want to hear them all. So eventually you're all going to be invited to come and speak with us. We need you.
Before you go, can I recommend this book to everyone? It's called Extra Time.
Who's it by?
And oh dear, what's that? And it's about this woman has done some research. Well, you got it, Lynn?
No, I'm going to recommend my own here.
But this woman has done some research into specifically our age group. And it's like in soccer where they play in extra time. And what she's saying is that our generation is now going into extra time, but we still have all the mental faculties, can't speak very well, but all the mental faculties, the life experience, and we could still be productive into our 90s. So I highly recommend that book. I'll give all the details to Nancy and she'll send, or Jocelyn, and they'll send it to everyone because it's very inspiring.
Okay, can I just recommend this one? It's called The Soul of a Woman, and it's written by this Brazilian, and it echoes so many things that everyone talked about tonight about women and women's struggles. And it's not, it comes from her own experiences, but she has an amazing, gentle perspective on everything, very common sense. It's a really small book. It's a quick read on the weekend. I've got it here if anyone wants to borrow it, but I highly recommend it. A friend of mine recommended it to me and I can't say enough about it. One last thing, we talked about a lot of social issues tonight. We talked a lot about politics, and I just want to add one more thing to that list of world problems our group is going to solve, and that is health. You know, yes, I know, women conquering the world. And, you know, the standard American diet is killing so many people today. I think it equates to what smoking was in the 50s. Remember in the 50s, we all recommended cigarettes and doctors recommended cigarettes. And remember Camels was recommended by thousands of doctors, and Lucky Strike was the cigarette of choice. And then people were dying of cancer, lung cancer. And then we discovered, okay, that smoking's not really good for us. And so I equate the standard American diet and all of the factory made foods today with smoking of yesterday. And so we really have to, I mean, we look at obesity and cancer related and diabetes and cancer related diseases. These are lifestyle diseases, are all diet related diseases. So what I've done is I've created a really small community of people who are taking the proactive approach to trying to improve their health through food. And we have a lot of fun. We share a lot of healthy recipes. We also talk about how our body works and why these foods are so damaging to our body. So anyway, the group is open to anyone who wants to join, and it's free. But I really am trying to promote the fact that even with COVID, we know that pre-existing conditions increase your risk of COVID. It's a risk factor, and pre-existing conditions are lifestyle conditions, which are diet-related conditions. Everything gets down to the same thing, and the message is not getting out. Mainly because in the 50s, most doctors smoked, and so the message wasn't getting out. And today, most doctors eat the standard American diet, and so the message isn't getting out today. But I don't, so many people are dying, and I think we need to get the message out earlier than what we did in the 50s. Anyway, that's my piece. If we could add health to that list of things that this group is going to solve, then that would be great. Thank you.
Wow. Nancy, if you want to do some closing remarks, that would be good. We've gone over by 20 minutes. You are muted.
Who?
Nancy, there you go.
I'm here now.
Is
Okay.
Nancy going to say something?
Yes, please.
Who, me? No,
Yes.
I'm just going to say thank you so much for participating in this. And I think we started something big.
Yes.
And I hope you will all stay connected. And when we can all get together again, we'll do that physically. But at least we do have Zoom, although some of us are getting awful tired of Zooming. But I'm really pleased with how this was. I'm really pleased and very proud of all of us. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you so very much.
Thank you guys for everybody who was on the table. It was really, really inspiring, and I learned a lot, so I appreciate it.
I just want to thank Samantha. She seems to be, I believe she's the youngest one here and so patient listening to us old ladies talking.
Oh, thank you. I have a lot to say, but since we're over the time limit, I'll wait till next time. I made a bunch of notes, so I look forward to it.
Good.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
I
Samantha.
think we need to
Thank you.
start thinking about what we can do as one person too. I mean, I realize we will, I'm hoping anyway that we will work in a group, but we've come up with one thing, and that is to write to our MPs, MPPs, and whatever. But we need to have other things like that that we can do that are like what we were talking earlier about. It's all very well to sit here and have this wonderful conversation, but what are we going to do? And I think that's something I would like to ask people to think about. And I hope it's not too long before we put this together again, because I think we could do something. I really think that we have some amazing women here that we could do some great things. Well, we already have, but we can do more.
Yes.
I agree, Anne, and I just want to say if everyone could give me permission, if Nancy can give me their emails, I would love to stay in touch with people.
Okay.
So it's up to you. If you give me permission, I will get in touch with you.
And again, if someone does not want their email shared, please just write to us at BPW Niagara Falls and we will not share it.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for a wonderful, wonderful evening.
You will all receive the link once it's put on the web somewhere.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know I've got yours, Sherry.
All right,
Thank
good
you.
night, everybody.
Yeah, I will stop the recording now.
Rosemary, thank you so much for coming, all of you.
It's nice
Thanks
to
so
see you,
much.
Nancy.
I'll stop the recording. Thank you.
Thank you.